Welcome back. This is a review for Fruits Basket 2019, episode 19. Um, I was actually really surprised by this episode, and I mean that in a lot of ways because, I was not expecting it to be what it was because, um, yes, it's very interesting. Now I'm gonna get into it. But this episode we get to meet Ritsu, who is the monkey of the zodiac. Um, he's a very fun character to say the least, a very interesting character. But yes, this episode in itself is actually completely different than what it is in the manga. Well, I won't say completely. It does still follow the same story beats that the manga and the 2001 version did, but there's been a lot of they did a lot of not I wouldn't say rearrange, but they redid a lot of things in this version. And I really actually like that. I really like how they did this episode with Ritsu, in this version and compared to the 2001 version, or even for that matter, actually in the manga. Um, it is completely different, and I'll probably eventually say this again later, but he's actually taken as like an actual character in the 2000 in the 2019 version. He's actually made to be an actual character, while in the 2001 version and in the even that for that matter the manga, he's kind of more taken for as a joke character, especially in the 2001 version. But even in the manga, he was kind of more taken as this random kind of jokey kind of comedic character. Um, and there's a very good reason for that, or at least kind of what my theory is on it. Um, so I have actually a lot to discuss with this episode. There's the thing I'm about to get into, and then there's the difference, especially how the difference between how the story is presented in both the manga and the 2001 version compared to the 2019 version. Um, but with Fruits Basket, or at least with Ritsu's character, um, kind of the reason why I feel like, and I'll get into it more. But kind of the reason why I feel like he's definitely portrayed better in the 2019 version with this remaked version of of his introduction chapters slash episode. Um, so, or at least compared to the 2001 version of the manga. So to kind of explain what I'm talking about is that if you didn't know this, Natsuki Takia, when she was creating Fruits Basket, roughly pretty much after Volume 6 ended, because Ritsu is introduced at the beginning of Volume 8. Pretty much from the end of Volume 6 to about when Ritsu, I keep saying that wrong, Ritsu was introduced, um, she had, her drawing hand had been bothering her. She had been going through a lot of pain with it, and so she had kind of started drawing a lot more shorter chapters and more of, and then nothing wrong with that, or I won't say short chapters, but more of like less overall plot development chapters. She'd still sprinkle in them in there. She'd still sprinkle them in here and there, but more so she would kind of diverge into these kind of one shot little by themselves singular chapters, we're gonna see, probably not next week's episode, but in the weeks after that. I think 21, you'll definitely see what I'm talking about. Um, where you had these just short little one shot contained stories within an episode or within a chapter or so. And then again, that's because her hand was bothering her, and it wasn't very good. So when it came to Ritsu's introduction, and again, pretty much almost every new zodiac animal besides Kagura's has always been at least 2 chapters long. And so with Ritsu's, it was literally she got done with the first chapter, and then her hand just completely gave out on her, and she had to go through surgery and then rehab, and then had to relearn how to back to draw again. And so the manga was on a hiatus for at least a good year. And so during that time, either the anime was made or was in the process of being made, the 2001 version that is. And then when she came back, and this is well documented in some of the interviews with her about the reaction that people had when she finally came back to redrawing the manga. Well, Of course, she was literally in the middle of Ritsu's introduction when had when she had to have her surgery, when she had put the series on hiatus. So when she came back, there was a lot of negative reaction, especially in terms of her art style. And I don't know why this is how it was. I really don't think there was much of a difference in her art style, at least not at that point. There wasn't. I don't feel like. But I guess the Japanese fans at that time really did not like the fact that there was maybe a subtle change in the art style or something. And they would send her letters saying that, oh, you're a horrible artist, you know, you should stop drawing, and sending her all these horrible things. And she would get, she says that, you know, there was a dark time during that time frame because, you know, she wasn't getting the fan encouragement that she was before. Um, and so Ritsu's introduction, I feel like, is kind of winds up being because of this, it winds up kind of cutting Ritsu's introduction short. So instead of her really being able to expand on Ritsu's character like she probably wanted to, she kind of had to jump ahead into actually starting to get into more of the actual story and other such things. And it's really unfortunate because it winds up cutting Ritsu's character short. It winds up making him go from someone who could have potentially been a really interesting character to kind of this played off more of this, you know, there's a little bit of seriousness to it, but definitely kind of more this joke character, unfortunately. And it's just how it wound up being. And because out of all the Zodiac animals, and actually, Christian, not even out of all Zodiac, out of almost all characters in Fruits Basket in general, Ritsu winds up being like the most least developed character, like period. Even amongst the Zodiac, he is like the least developed character. Like if you're unless this remake does adds him more back into the series, um, you're not really gonna see Ritsu very often. You might see him in background a couple of times, just making brief little cameos, and he'll maybe have a couple of lines here or there. But for the most part, this is his main chapter. You're not really going to see him again, unlike all the other Zodiac animals that you see them again after, besides just their introductory chapters. Um, and the thing about it is that Natsuki has even stated in different, like in one of the side panels in one of the Tokyo Pop volumes, that she wanted to she actually did have more plans, more story plans for Ritsu and Mitsuru as well as together, both individual and together as a couple. But she just never was able to get around to actually putting it in the manga because it just never seemed to fit in. Which is again unfortunate because I get the feeling that she probably would have added it in earlier on in the series before a lot of other things happen, which I'm not going to get into. But I agree in that she really wouldn't have been able to add it in later on because it really wouldn't have fit in with everything else that was going on. Anyway, I talked too much about that, but the manga version and the 2001 version are pretty similar with the exception of just kind of one thing at the end and also some little brief dialogue stuff, and that's because of spoiler stuff. So even the 2001 version like took out some of this spoiler dialogue that hasn't actually happened yet. They took it out from the manga, and then they also took out one little brief scene as well, which was kind of weird that they took it out. So I'm going to quickly try to go over that, and that is, so in the manga, in the 2001 version, Toru runs into Mitsuru pretty much the same way she does in the 2019 version. You know, the brag breaks and Ritsu starts freaking out. Toru says, "Oh, hey, are you Ritsu?" Ritsu proceeds to freak out further. They go into the Shigure's house, and um, let's see. Um, they go into Shigure's house, and then they get the whole joke with the Ritsu didn't know what fruit to bring, so he brought fruit books, and so that joke's still there in the manga and in the 2001 version. And then Toru leaves to go make tea. Yuki enters, and Ritsu's like, "Oh, you're starting to look more like your brother," and you know he gets upset about that. or Yuki is like, ah, whatever about that, and then Ritsu, kind of reacts to it. It's like, oh no, I should just go home. And then Toru comes in, he's like, oh no, don't do that, and then he accidentally knocks the tea out of her hand, breaking the tea glasses, um, and then proceeds to freak out even further, nearly steps on the glass, which Toru kind of pushes him out of the way, kind of hugs him, pushes him away, and that's when he turns into the monkey. But she then kind of freaks out and winds up cutting her hand a little bit on the glass that's now broken on the floor. And then it skips over to you seeing Yuki wrapping up Toru's hand very poorly from the glass. And then it skips, and then Toru's like, oh hey, where's Ritsu? And then it cuts to you seeing him up on the roof and everyone freaking out. And then Toru gives half of the speech that she did on in the 2019 version. It's actually split into two. They combined it in the 2019 version, but it's actually split into two parts. And so she gives him the first half of, oh, you should have, you are someone worth living for. You're alive right now. You have to have the nerve to be able to live like that, to be able to live and whatnot. So she calms him down, and then of course it's kind of played off as a joke because he kind of slips off the roof, but then he grabs onto the roof at the last second before he completely falls off and pulls himself back up, only to have twisted his ankle. And so then he kind of asks Shigure, he kind of musters up the courage and asks Shigure if he can stay over at the house for the next couple of days, to which, of course, Hattori comes over and has to fix up his ankle. And that's where you get Shigure's comment of, oh, you should try to be more confident, and Ritsu's like, oh, I want to be like Aya, and Shigure's like, no, you can't be like that. And then Hattori's like, you should be more tactful. There's those little funny little conversations there. And then it skips over to, pretty much Toru's coming home from school, and she runs into she runs into Ritsu, who is buying takoyaki for Shigure, who requested it, and he's trying to kind of barter with a cat not to take the takoyaki, and it's funny. And then they kind of have a conversation. That's where Toru brings in the, I don't think anyone is born with a reason to live, that to find it, and even if it's found in like a person or dream or work or yourself or whatever, you can always find a reason to live. And even if sometimes you lose that dream or you're uncertain of that dream of that reason, but you can always find a new one. And she says, I hope to find my reason for living in someone else. And of course that's when Ritsu thinks the same. And that's pretty much where the 2001 version ended. And the only thing that's really missing from the entirety of Ritsu's introduction, besides, at least manga-wise, from the 2001 version, was at the very end he runs into Mitsuru and they get all blushy around each other, basically, because they were freaking out over Shigure. And as you can tell, it's completely, the manga version and the 2001 version are completely different than the 2019 version in every way, shape, and form. Because, once again, the big thing I feel like is that Ritsu's character in the 2001 version, and also the manga as well, although maybe not quite as much the manga, but definitely in the 2001 version, is definitely played off as more comedic and more goofy and more silly. And it's, I don't know, like, for me when I came into this episode, I was just like, oh, okay, it's just the Ritsu episode, whatever. I didn't really care much of him as a character. I mean, he is, Ritsu is who Ritsu is, then I was fine with Ritsu, but, it became a thing of, I was like, okay, it's just the Ritsu episode. I didn't really care much. I was like, okay, I'm waiting for the next stuff to come up. It's just the Ritsu episode. But then this episode, the 2019 version hit, and I was like, wow, this is actually really, really good, because I actually finally got to see Ritsu as a proper character. Ritsu is now more than just kind of a goofy, off-the-wall, random character that's just there. He actually has a lot of character development. You actually see him trying to grow. And I like that they actually combined Toru's little two speeches into one on the rooftop, which is a lot better, because it flows a lot better. And I like that you actually get to see Ritsu and Mitsuru interacting a lot more. it's so much better. Again, because Ritsu is actually more of a character this time around than just being some comedic com, com I can't talk um, comedy relief. He's actually more of a character this time around. He's not, just goofball random shenanigans screaming monkey guy, monkey person. He's actually like an actual character, and you actually see him trying to grow, which is actually really nice because it's like he says himself he doesn't really have a lot of confidence in himself, but he wants to have more. And you see him trying to do that, and then you see him take Toru's words about trying to find your reason for living in someone else. And you see him take that to heart, and then you even get a little more information on Mitsuru being like, yeah, she's like, oh, I don't really think I'm fit for this job sometimes. I'm just kind of like sometimes I feel useless at it, and Ritsu connects with her and is like, yeah, I have always kind of felt useless about everything. And then he gives her the speech of which Toru gave him, and it's so nice to see that, and it's so refreshing to actually see Ritsu being an actual character instead of just being used as comedic relief. I absolutely love this episode. It is. I wasn't expecting to. I was just expecting another goofy. This to be pretty much how it was in the manga in the 2001 version, where it's just goofy shenanigans, comedic character Ritsu. But it actually turned out to be a really well done episode. I love the way that it portrayed Ritsu's character, in that he has a lot of struggles, in that both in terms of, because he himself, he um how do I put this, so he's always kind of felt useless, and he's only really he's kind of only average at best at whatever else at everything that he does. He's not as good as everyone else is, and so he doesn't really have a lot of confidence in himself, and so he's always very timid, because so he kind of became timid and shy because of that. And this actually plays into um, his whole cross-dressing thing, which is that in Japan, if you don't know this, it is, for men, it is considered, men are supposed to be considered like really assertive and confident and outgoing, while women are supposed to be considered more timid and shy. And so because of the fact that Ritsu didn't have, he already kind of felt useless, and like he was worthless in a lot of ways compared to everyone else, so he didn't really have a lot of self-confidence. And then you come in and you bring in, so when he tried on women's clothing, which is, it's fine, it's whatever. He tried on women's clothing and actually felt comfortable for once. He's like, yeah, I actually don't have to be confident. I don't have to try to be able to go out and be assertive and be, this manly man. I can be a little bit more of myself. I can be timid and shy and not feel like society is judging me in this way. And I don't know, it's I don't know, I like the way that they portrayed him in this version of this, in the 2019 version, more than um, the 2001 version, which, again, the majority of this is just due to the fact that he actually is an actual character now, and not just being used as comedic relief, which, again, I love that. And that, because, again, for the first time, I actually felt like Ritsu was an actual character. So I approve. I absolutely love this. I think it's going in great directions. And if this is how Fruits Basket can handle one of its probably more trickier subjects, more probably the worst handled character in Fruits Basket, because again he didn't really have a lot of character development at all in the manga. If this is how Natsuki Taki, because remember she is one of the lead supervisors, if this is how her kind of going back and fixing some of the things that needed to be fixed, and expanding more upon some of these characters that really didn't get much attention, then this is going to be one really, really good anime. And it might even surpass the manga. I know that's a lot, that's saying a lot, but it might, just based on this episode alone. There is a possibility that Fruits Basket 2019 might wind up being better than the manga. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't want to count any chickens before they hatch. You know, don't want, and that was not a the roost. That was not a reference to the rooster zodiac. No, I'm just saying. It's just I'm just saying the little phrases. Um, Other than that, though, again, I other than that, like I said, I do like Ritsu a lot more now as a character. I actually really enjoyed Ritsu as a character. Anyway, other than that, that's really about it. I cannot wait for next week's episode, or actually at this point, it's tomorrow's episode. It's been really busy. Um, yes, I cannot wait for tomorrow's episode. It's gonna be fun. But other than that, that's really about it. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.